Welcome back. I'm Alaina. How to handle an employee that undermines you. So today's video, I'm going to show you the top 3 things that you can actually do to turn an employee who undermines you into a top A player for your team. So stay tuned. First, I'm going to be covering the top 5 reasons of why a team player can be undermining you. Then I'm going to share to you something that might not feel so good, but it'll be what you could be doing to contribute to this behavior. Then I'm going to show you the top 4 things that you could do to transform your relationship overnight. Next, how to transform yourself from a manager to an inspiring leader that people want to follow. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools like my client Bridget, who turned her entire team into top performing A players for her. So let's get started. Now, there are a number of reasons why somebody could be undermining you who's on your team, an employee or even a contractor that could be undermining you. And let's go to the board and we'll talk about them a little more. So the first reason is that they could be energetically incompatible. Now, what does that mean? This is something that I actually have my clients test for on a regular basis. We all have, I'm going to call them energetic signatures. We emit a frequency, and certain frequencies are actually not compatible with other energetic frequencies. Now you may say this sounds pretty outlandish. According to quantum physics, we are actually only 0.00001% matter. The rest of us is energy. So we are far more energy than we are matter, and people experience each other's frequency all the time. Like, you ever walk into a room and all of a sudden the room doesn't feel right? Or you can tell somebody's just had a fight in the room, right? That is because you're feeling the energy of that space. And it's the same thing that happens with people. Sometimes we're just not compatible with certain people. Doesn't make me wrong, doesn't make you wrong. We just might not be compatible. Then another reason why that might happen is because they're not the right fit. So how does that differ from the first one? Well, in the first one, this was about energy and energy frequency. In this one in particular, it's maybe they don't have the skills for the job that you have. Maybe they don't, like, for example, there are high performers and there are, I'm going to say, average performers. Now, I tend to work with only high performers. High performers think differently, they take action differently than average performers. So if you're looking to fill a position with a high performer, but you fill it with an average performer, the same things are not going to work for that person, and there's going to be conflict. And they may feel really uncomfortable working with you or working in the role, maybe not with you, but working in the role as a result because of the requirements that a high performer wouldn't have any problems with, but somebody who's not a high performer would. Now, the second thing is, this is the key, they may not be led effectively. What I experience with so many of my clients is that they're brilliant at the thing that they're delivering the service for, but since they haven't been taught how to communicate, they haven't been taught how to lead, most of them, they're really not very effective leaders. They're not bad leaders, they just haven't been taught how to lead effectively. And so there may be something that you're actually doing in your leadership that is ineffective in getting this person on board with you. And so that friction for them is creating an issue. The next one is you may actually trigger them and provoke their insecurities. Now, I'm not saying that this is your fault in any way. I'm saying that they are based on their past experiences. I have a client, for example, who has an issue with certain men. So she had a lot of trauma with men in early life, and as a result, there are certain men who she just has an issue with. Now, if you happen to be one of those men, and this client were an actual employee or a team member of yours, just your very presence might trigger them based on their past experiences, having nothing to do with what's going on right now. Because that is what the past is about. The past is in the past. It doesn't exist anymore. It has nothing to do with what's happening now. And yet people are living the past in the present moment. They're dragging their past into the present moment, and then they're projecting it onto the circumstance, and they're making meaning about that circumstance that has nothing to do with with what's really going on. Okay, now here's the last one. They may have great ideas, but they're poor communicators, right? So they may not know how to communicate their ideas effectively. They may be afraid that their ideas are going to be rejected, so they tend to do undermining behavior as a result of not understanding what they need to do to be able to communicate those ideas effectively. So the next thing is to get to the bottom of your triggers. I was just talking about how your employee or team member might be triggered and projecting that past. The same thing might actually be happening for you. You might be doing the same thing with this employee. So maybe you had an experience before, maybe even somebody undermined you in the past. It could have happened in your early days at school. It could have happened with a friend that you were undermined in some way. And so their behavior ends up being very triggering for you. And instead of dealing with the trigger effectively, because you haven't learned what's really going on, you're projecting your stuff onto that person. And then if you're projecting onto that person, it's virtually impossible to course correct the relationship to turn it around. So the key is to get clear about what your triggers are, what's going on here for you. And I can tell you, anytime you're feeling frustrated, angry, or any negative emotion, you're feeling triggered, right? That's a good indicator to know that if you're feeling some form of negative emotion, there's a trigger going on, and investigate what's really the root of it. And I have to say, this is the truth for relationships across the board, not just, team players relationships as well. Ready to create your dream team? Be sure to like and subscribe so you can get all my latest tips on exactly how to make your team be A-list players for you so they up their game and allow you to up your business's game. Okay, so one of the first things that you want to do is really nip it in the bud. You don't want to allow this behavior to continue. It can be toxic for your entire team. I have worked with clients who they had a couple of toxic team members, and it just infected their entire team and made that an issue. So you want to make sure that you nip it in the bud, but there are different ways to do that. And let's go back to the board and I'll show you how. So the first thing that you want to do is really listen. So it may be that the team member isn't feeling valued and heard, and you want to listen to what's really going on for them. Now, I mentioned right before this that you had to really get clear on your triggers. If you're going into a conversation and you're still triggered, it will be virtually impossible for you to listen clearly. You're going to be thinking about what you want to say next. You're going to be trying to interpret what they're trying to say rather than listening. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So really open up your 2 ears and listen clearly to what they're saying so you can get to the root of what's really going on for them. Then it will allow you to understand how to best deal with it. They may have actually very valuable input. And so again, by listening to what's going on, you'll be able to hear their valuable input in a different way and be able to filter it through so it's not coming through in undermining behavior. One of the keys to be able to do this, each of them are building on top of each other, and one of the keys to really get to the valuable input is to ask powerful questions. Questions are amazing, but don't ask why questions, right? If you ask why questions make people very defensive. Why did you do that? That immediately puts people on the defensive. That's not a powerful question. So learn really powerful questioning techniques so that you can understand how to get to the root of what's really going on in their behavior and how to deal with it so you can nip it in the bud so it doesn't continue on. And again, you can turn your relationship around. And then one of the things that you want to do is give really clear feedback, set really clear boundaries. Because if somebody's doing this behavior, right, as I said, it can infect the entire team and it can infect the overall feeling of your business and bring the energy down in your business. And you want to make sure that you're really dealing with it straight away because you don't want there to be a decline in your business, a decline in your productivity as a result. One of the keys is to be the captain of your own ship, right? So you're the only person who has the 30,000-foot view. Unless you have a CEO, they may share that with you, but you're the only person who really has the 30,000-foot view of what's going on in the business. You're working or managing various different parts of the business. Hopefully other people are doing the work for you, but you're essentially doing so many various parts of the business that this team member, this employee, doesn't have the privilege of actually seeing. They're hyper-focused on their role and what their role is. They don't understand what's key here. So there's a couple of things that you could do, and I'll talk about this in the context of my client Bridget, but also one of the things is really sharing your vision with your team so that they're on board of where the ship is moving to. Because if they don't understand the entire picture, it's like they have blinders on, and so they're so focused that they're missing. It's a myopic approach. They're missing what's really going on here. So you want to really make sure that they're on board with the vision and that you're conveying the vision in a way that they understand it. Because they may not be on board with your vision, what your purpose is in life, but the vision of the business, there will be some piece of the vision of the business and how they can get on board. Now, let me talk about my client Bridget for a second, because when she first started working with me, one of the things that was a major issue, she had a team of about 10 or 12 people, and they were talking behind her back. She found a string of messages that they were all writing about her, and it was not positive experiences, and it had actually infected the entire team. So even people who were super productive for her were now in this gossipy stuff. Now, part of the reason that this happened was A, she didn't understand how to communicate effectively, and B, she wanted people to like her. And I have seen this so many times where she's sharing personal things about herself with her entire team to make herself feel like she's one of the crowd rather than a hierarchy, because she didn't want to create a hierarchy. But what happened is people didn't see her as a leader, right? So it wasn't effective at all because people were not seeing her as a leader they wanted to follow. They were only sort of following her because she had the role and the title, and it was creating massive issues, and she was not meeting her income goals as a result. And so one of the things that we did is help her clear having to be friends with everybody. Not that you can't be friendly with your team, but there was a limiting belief around her having to be liked, about her wanting to be liked, and her deserving to have people actually report to her. And once we cleared that out of the way, and once she understood, she did actually have some of those problems. Some of the people there were one person in particular she wasn't energetically compatible with, and one person who wasn't a right fit for the role. And everybody else, she just did a better job of communicating effectively with them and replaced those two people, and she watched a massive skyrocket, like literally $165,000 of business in 1 month, right? It was a massive skyrocket of income as a result of learning effective leadership, effective communication, and understanding the limiting beliefs and triggers she had around what her team was doing. She was able to turn the ship around and now has a team of high performers, total A players. And it's possible for you too. So be sure to watch the next video where I'll be teaching you how to up your leadership game to even more create a team of people who are thrilled to follow you. Thanks, I'm Alaina, and I'll see you on the next video.